I am speaking with our state senator, Bruce Tarr, as I often do. We've missed a couple of weeks. I miss you, Bruce. It's been a while.
Well, it's great to be back with you, Heather, and great to see that Cape Ann sunshine coming through the windows up there in Lanesville. So it's wonderful.
I know. You're still there at the State House because you have had such a crazy week. We are going to talk about the budget, the whole budget process at the Senate. But first of all, I want to ask you this. You actually, in a year of surging tax revenues, it seemed like you really wanted to convince your colleagues in the Senate that they should be including some kind of tax relief in this budget. So tell us what you were doing there.
So the issue here is that we have revenue that's coming in that is wildly exceeding all of our projections and all of the benchmarks upon which our budgets are based, which means that it actually is excess revenue. And while there are lots of important things that we need to spend money on, and I understand that, and we are going to spend money on lots of important things and in increased numbers, we also need to find a way to recognize that taxpayers in Massachusetts have gone through an incredibly difficult time with COVID-19. They're now going through a difficult time with inflation and gas prices and so many of the challenges to household budgets that we need to recognize. So I am working, and I'm not alone, with others to try to find ways that we can give some money back because the only way to help people is not just to spend money through the government, it's to let them keep some of their own. And so what I was advocating for in the state budget is a package, a number of things that was actually put together by Governor Baker. And he filed a bill to do some of those things back in January because even back then, it was clear that we were going to have excess revenue and the ability to help folks. So I put together a package, and again, I was not alone. I had co-sponsors in the budget process that included the governor's items, but also a suspension of the gas tax, which is something that I have been advocating for a while. And I know that taking 24 cents out of the price isn't going to make the problem go away, but it might ease the pain a little bit. And what we're trying to do there is suspend the gas tax until after Labor Day. So during the period of time when people are driving the most, when we need them to drive the most to come to us as tourists and to be able to move about in the summer, we just wanted to give that break. And it's important in such matters to be persistent. I've tried this in the past. But persistence on Beacon Hill is an important virtue. And so once again in the budget, I did try again with that package. And it was a significant debate. It was a very vigorous debate, as you would expect it to be. And interestingly enough, the amendment that I put forward was obviously supported by the 3 Republican members of the Senate, but it was actually supported by 7 members of the majority party. So it was supported by twice as many Democrats as it was Republicans. And so this is the kind of thing where we're going to have to persist. I made the argument, and I think it's the right argument, that the time to do this was when we are spending close to $50 billion of state money. And that's the right time. When you're thinking about the coming year, you're thinking about the budget, you need to think about the entire package and try to find a place for the taxpayers in that budget. So we got 10 votes, which is significant. And we had voiced a commitment or heard a commitment from the Senate president to consider some form of tax relief. There are some newspapers reporting today that the speaker has now indicated that he has some interest in tax relief. But part of my argument in the debate, Heather, was that according to the legislative calendar, we don't have much time. So formal sessions of the legislature end at the end of July. And it's very unlikely that any kind of a major tax reduction package would be passed in an informal session. So we did have, as of the time of the debate 2 days ago, 40 days left. And it's also significant to understand that the Senate cannot initiate a tax cut package. It has to be initiated according to the Massachusetts Constitution, which says that all money bills need to originate in the House. It has to be originated in the House. So even if there are the best of intentions in the Senate, we cannot start this process. So we have to hope that the House starts the process. But in the case of the budget, the budget is a money bill, and we already had it from the House. So this was our opportunity, I think, to do some important things. It would mean about $700 million in savings for folks. That's before you get to the gas tax. And just to put that into perspective, Heather, in April, our revenue collections exceeded our benchmark, what we need to operate in the budget, by $2 billion. And I showed that in a chart in floor debate, and I showed that in 1 month, we were talking about roughly a third of the surplus revenue to be able to do the things that we're talking about. And by the way, I offered this package. I'm committed to it, but I'm not wedded to it. And so if folks have other ideas, we need to talk about those ideas. If there are other ways that we can help, we need to talk about that. But the one thing to me that's unacceptable is to do nothing and to have all of these funds in state government and not realize that people are struggling in many ways and we need to find ways to help them.
So I understand that you have some creative ways of expressing your interest in tax relief. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, absolutely. So one thing that we try to do in the minority party is use lots of visual aids to be able to express the point. And so I think we used somewhere in the order of magnitude of 13 or 14 charts to illustrate all kinds of things in this debate, including the increase in gas prices that people are experiencing, the increase in inflation that we're experiencing, the increase in the cost of rental housing. And that was a staggering number to see the trend for rental housing. And of course, one of the things we were proposing is to increase the deduction, the tax deduction for renters. But I think what you're referring to, and something that caught the attention of the press a little bit, was the three bags that I used. And so these were burlap sacks, and one of them represented the total number of the budget, close to $50 billion. And in it, there were various scrolls that indicated some of the programs that are very important in the budget. There's some very important spending initiatives that are contained in this document that we approved late yesterday. But the second bag was for the taxpayers. And in that bag, there was zero. There was, if you look carefully inside the bag, there was an IOU. And the IOU was the pledge that's been made to consider some form of tax relief, not to actually accomplish it, but to think about it. And then in the third bag were a number of the relevant factors to that IOU, such as the Senate can initiate a tax cut package. There's only 40 days left to do it. Revenue is running way ahead of projections. And in fact, one of the things that was in the third bag was a letter that we just recently received from the Secretary of Administration and Finance, increasing the revenue projection for the coming fiscal year. So we've talked a little bit about what's happening in the current fiscal year, but the projection is also being increased for fiscal year 2023, which is, of course, the budget that we were debating. So it was what's in the budget, what's not in the budget for taxpayers, and some of the factors that we need to think about. And in fact, at the conclusion of the debate, I presented the chairman of Ways and Means, my good friend Mike Rodericks from Westport, with the bag for taxpayers. And I said, I hope we're going to find a way to fill this up.
That's really funny. So, you know, am I wrong in believing that the governor was going to propose a bill for tax relief separately from this budget?
He actually already did, and that's the bill that he proposed pretty much when he filed his budget back in January. And that bill had a public hearing before the Committee on Revenue, and unfortunately, it hasn't moved since then. And that's one of the frustrating elements of the entire situation. And under Joint Rule 10, that bill should have been reported out one way or the other, favorably or unfavorably, or held in a study. And it has not been because the committee has asked for an extension. And it's asked for an extension to go practically to the end of the formal legislative session. And of course, that's not realistic, because if they wait until July 31st to report out a bill, the chances of it getting through the House and the Senate and then potentially a conference committee in one day are pretty negligible, which is why I was trying to focus attention on trying to do something in the budget debate while we still have time, while if the House has different ideas, we can try to work them out. But as we know, that didn't happen. But the governor has in fact made that proposal. And while I offered some additional ways that we could help taxpayers in the budget, my main focus was on the governor's proposal because I actually think it's very balanced and helps folks in many different ways and at many different income levels. And so essentially it was that bill that the governor filed in January that we were debating, not yesterday, but the day before.
So I'm going to do the thing I probably shouldn't do and ask you to speak for the majority party. Where is the resistance to this? I mean, it seems like an easy thing to do, and certainly a very electable position to ride on, right?
Well, I think the majority is coming around to the notion that we have to do something. I think there's always hesitance because when you're in the majority, you want to do things your way. And so their thought was, this is a proposal that was put together by the governor. It was sponsored by the Republican minority in the Senate. And maybe we have a different way of doing things, and we want to think about that different way of doing things. And there were arguments made about folks in the majority not being sure that all of these dollars would find their way to the most needy people in the Commonwealth. And by the way, that's true. There are some middle-income folks and even some higher-income folks that would be affected by some of the provisions that we put forward. But that was the gist of what was being said. And what I thought was interesting is the suggestion that we need more time. We need to look at this outside the context of the budget. And of course, my argument is the bill was filed in January. And we are running out of time. And Heather, as we've talked about, there are a great many things that are currently in the legislative pipeline that are actually in conference committees. So the amount of bandwidth that we have as a legislature is very limited because we're already working on so many different things. So again, my argument was the time to do it was over the last couple of days. The counter argument was we need to think about this more. We need to maybe think about a different structure, and we need to think about it outside the context of the budget. I happen to disagree with that, but that was the nature of the debate.
So you had a number of amendments in this on the floor this week. So do you want to talk about the ones that made you really happy that got through, and the ones that maybe disappointed you?
Sure. So there were filed altogether 1,179 amendments by the members of the Senate for consideration in the budget debate. Of those 1,179, I filed 109. And that's not uncommon for me to file the larger number of amendments. And that's because I'm wearing two hats when I do that. I'm wearing the hat of the minority leader and trying to advance the agenda of the minority party. And then I'm filing lots of things for our local communities that are important and local projects. So to have 109 for me is not necessarily uncommon. In fact, oftentimes I have filed close to double that. But I would point out something, that this is in many ways, and even though I have issues with it, in many ways this is a very good budget. It's a budget that increases the amount of money for K through 12 education in Chapter 70. It increases the amount of money for special education circuit breaker funding. It increases unrestricted general government aid, which most of us refer to as local aid, to the cities and towns. Very significant increases in those things. And in some other things, and I won't go through the whole laundry list, but another one that's very important to me is a $6 million grant program that's included in the budget for grants to schools for social emotional learning. And this is something that we have seen a need for well before the pandemic, but certainly the pandemic has highlighted the need for us to find ways to help our schools with issues of social emotional learning. So there are many, many important elements to this budget. There's additional funding for nursing homes, which has been something that I've been advocating for a long time. So there are many important spending items in the budget. But again, of the 29 amendments that I had that got passed, there are a couple that are known as outside sections. And those are things that don't necessarily spend money, but they are important elements of policy. And one of them was a study with a broad-based commission to look at retaining and recruiting police officers in Massachusetts. We have been hearing all across the state, and in fact all across the country, that police departments are having a hard time recruiting adequate numbers of police officers. And so what our commission would do, and this is an amendment that passed, would look at recruiting and retaining not only an adequate number of police officers, but qualified police officers and diverse police officers, so that police departments look like the people that they're policing. So I was very pleased to be able to get that passed as an outside section. Another outside section had to do with accountability. So we, for years, have had a system in Massachusetts, oftentimes referred to as open checkbook, where all state spending is put on the web so folks can see it. And included in that spending are personnel costs and compensation. But there's a category of state agencies known as the quasi-public agencies that do not provide that information. Some do on a voluntary basis, but they're not required to do it. And so we adopted unanimously an amendment to require them to put that information up so that we can have some additional transparency. So those are a couple of the outside sections that are very important. But when we come to spending items, Heather, one of the things that is very important is the amendment that I got advanced and that passed, which would create a grant program for our lobster fishermen, because we know what they're struggling with regard to right whale closures. And the new requirements, the new regulations, are going to require them to purchase new gear, rope that will break at certain tension points so that if there's an entanglement, the whale can be freed. Sometimes instead of the rope, there are links that are used that can break, different kinds of buoys that can be used. But that is expensive. And so I was able to get past a $500,000 grant program to be able to help fishermen up and down the coast be able to afford that gear. And I'm very optimistic about it. I would like it to have been more, but it's a good start. And hopefully we can revisit it sometime in the near future. So that was important. Another amendment that comes close to home was one that has to do with the Cape Ann Climate Coalition. And as I think you're aware, this is a broad-based coalition in the 4 Cape Ann communities that is looking at all of the challenges that we face in dealing with climate change, whether that be erosion or sea level rise or renewable energy to be able to reduce carbon emissions to try to prevent those things. And they have been engaged for a while now in a whole study process that's involved some folks from Harvard and some other organizations to be able to look at what we face and how we might deal with it. And I was able to put some money in the budget for that in the current year that we're in, and also put $175,000 into it for the coming year so that that work can continue. And that's important, and hopefully it will make a difference. Okay. So something that you haven't read as much about in the newspapers is the issue of possibly creating centralized wastewater treatment for Cape Ann. Gloucester is in need of a treatment plant. Rockport has capacity issues. Manchester has capacity issues. And of course, Essex is served by Gloucester. So Congressman Moulton a while ago said, why don't we think about maybe doing this as a combined effort? And we pulled together a meeting. We had a discussion. We are collecting information now, basic information. But I did put $50,000 into the budget so that we can continue that effort to see if it's a possibility.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, what do you have to say about this budget in 30 seconds? Because we're going to wrap up.
I think it's a good budget. I think it's good for what it does for so many different areas, because we have a significant amount of money and we're spending that money in many important places. Again, education, local aid, behavioral health, addiction, lots of different things. The one piece that's missing that really stands out is the ability to help taxpayers. And I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do that in another document in the near future. And I will be persisting in my quest to be able to do that.
That's great. Well, you are a star minority leader. So thank you for your time. And hopefully we can talk to you next week and catch up on what's happened.
Well, thanks, Heather. It's great to be talking to the star of Cape Ann today. So thank you so much, and thanks to 1623 for letting us have conversations like this. I appreciate it, and I hope our viewers will be watching this next week, but I'm hoping you will have had a wonderful weekend. And I just want to remind folks that it is Memorial Day coming up, and again, it's important that we remember the folks that serve our nation and that have served.
Thank you so much.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.